Hello and welcome back to the Pulse with Willie and Al. How you doing today, Al?
Willie, doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, my man. Glad to be back again. It is Friday. It feels weird because I'm on vacation, so I don't really know what day is what. But it is Friday. So Friday
Yeah,
afternoon here and Friday morning for you. But
yeah.
dude, we are a quarter century old today.
This episode can, and the name of this episode today, this episode can rent a car legally. How about
Yes,
that?
it's
How about
amazing.
that?
I'm very pumped about it. So glad to be doing number 25 here. Just wanted to mention, guys, before we dive into some NFL news and the Thursday night game, I just want to remind you, don't forget to smash that subscribe button. Go ahead and like the video. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. Also, make sure to answer the trivia question in the comments as well if you think you know it. So, all right, let's take the wheels off here, see what we've got. So some big NFL news. Deshaun Watson has season-ending shoulder surgery. Now, before we really discuss this and jump in big on it, I just want to say that he played 2 quarters with a fractured shoulder and a high ankle sprain. I'm
Yeah,
pretty impressed by that. Like people are questioning, like, oh, he's not that tough, this and that. First of all, he's an NFL player, so he's already got a speed in that category. But a lot of these guys are,
sure.
are armchair warriors, right? Saying that stuff. Let me just ask you real quick. What do you think this means for Cleveland in terms of their chances the rest of the season?
Honestly, it's not great. Like this is, I think the last domino. Like they've been able to kind of patch it together without Chubb, but this is like the step that's too far for them. Like PJ Walker wasn't the answer for them when they were playing him, and it looks like Dorian Thompson Robinson going forward is going to be their starter. And he looked pretty decent in the preseason, but he's just going to get thrown in the fire. And like this team is just it's just patched together with band aids at this point. Like you have Jerome Ford coming at running back, like DTS as your quarterback. Like it's not good right now, and somehow they're 6-3. So I and luckily the thing that will keep them in this though is that defense.
Yeah.
So
It's and they run the ball particularly well, which is a good thing. But let's not forget that they traded away Josh Dobbs at the beginning of the year.
sure did.
It just and now they're watching him, light it up for Minnesota, as is Arizona. So, what do you think their chances are of making the playoffs now?
It's the AFC North, so I honestly don't know. Like I hate saying that, but like the NFC North, like everything that I thought about, I knew about football is thrown out the window with this division.
Hmm.
I you could it's kind of like it's funny because Pittsburgh's like kind of the last team standing with injuries. Like they're the only one whose quarterback is healthy, except their quarterback's Kenny Pickett. So I don't know. They kind of like it seems like Pittsburgh has the inside track, but like I don't. Baltimore still has like a 2 game lead in this division. So
Yeah. Well, speaking of them, checked out the Thursday night game, and turns out neither of us were right. It was an absolute blowout.
yeah,
Cincinnati gets crushed, but in the process, Joe Burrow goes down. They're saying it's just a wrist sprain, but we're going to have to monitor that to kind of find out exactly how long he could potentially be out for. But I will say, Baltimore may have won this game and won the battle, but I think Cincinnati's likely going to win the war because Baltimore ended up losing Mark Andrews for the year, and that's
yeah,
absolutely crushing to this team. I do not think they have enough targets on offense between. I know OBJ, people want to say, oh, he looks so good. Listen, he's going to get back to what he usually does, which is probably get banged up and hurt again. Rashad Bateman can't stay healthy. Yeah, he had a touchdown, great. But how long is that going to last? Can they do it with Zay Flowers and Isaiah Likely? I just don't know, man. Like they've lost so many pieces on this team. Their defense is banged up still. Like it just, I mean, I know their defense is playing well, but I just think this division's prime for the picking for Cincinnati to come back. Like, yeah, they're 500 right now. I know the Steelers are, have a pretty good lead in the division, and then Baltimore even on top of them. But I just think Cincinnati's got a path to get back. I just don't see that happening with Cleveland. I don't know if Baltimore can continue winning games the way they have without having a presence like Mark Andrews there.
I I actually I'm gonna disagree on both of your points, and I'll
Ooh.
start with the Cincinnati point
Mm-hmm.
because if Joe Burrow's wrist is sprained and it's on his it's his throwing wrist, like
Mm-hmm.
what kind of zip is he gonna be able to put on balls? Like respectfully, like he's not gonna be able to put anything on that. And I think they're gonna if he's not 100%, I think they're gonna sit him because that injury could get worse if they just keep letting him play. And he is your franchise quarterback, and you've sometimes you got to know when to punt on a season, and I think you got to punt with Cincinnati. Like they're 2.5 games out in this division, and I know that's not insurmountable, but like the AFC North is just they can't run the ball. I know last night they ran for 136 yards. I get that, but they're still like Joe Mixon's really not the answer anymore. Like
Right.
Jake Browning in limited play last night ran the ball well. Um, but they really you don't respect them on the run most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And with Baltimore, they run the ball really well, and I think if their defense can just play well enough and they keep running the ball well. I don't think Lamar is going to have to do much.
Yeah. I mean, this is
It,
the thing.
yeah,
Like he's lost pieces in the past, and we've kind of seen what's happened. But I mean, you are right. What wins in the playoffs is running the ball well and playing good defense. And if they're able to do that within the next, because we're not far away. I mean, we're in week 11 right now. We're 7 weeks away from playoffs, so
no,
it's not long. My concern is how easy is it for them to get there? And I still, I don't know. Maybe they are one of the better teams now, but I don't know. I really hope that Cincinnati's able to turn it around. I know, obviously, I don't want them playing Burrow if he's hurt, because it
yeah.
will exacerbate that injury big time. But I really would like to see them make the playoffs still. I still,
And the
it's
thing,
hard for me to count them out, right?
and the thing is too, like Jamar Chase didn't play well last night. I
Hmm.
mean, he had what 2 catches for 12 yards. Like you can't do that. Like, and I know too. Like, I know that they. I know that they have T. Higgins that's hurt, and I know they didn't really have anybody like throwing the ball to Chase last night, but like this Cincinnati just feels like a mess, and it's just like this might be that year from hell for them.
Yeah.
Like,
It didn't start off well, and it's almost like
yeah,
when you start losing control of the bike and it's wobbling, and now they can't control it anymore. It's a very
yeah.
tough thing, but well, let's dive into two teams that do seem to have things under control at least pretty well, as both are the top teams in the conference. We'll break down the Monday night game. Finally, an amazing Monday night matchup. We got Philly at Kansas City, and I checked yesterday. It could have changed since then, but Kansas City was getting 2.5. The over/under was 45. That may have shifted a tiny bit, but we get the Kelsey Bowl part two. So I mean, both teams are coming off buys, right? So they had a chance to kind of rest up, heal up a little bit. And I know we talked about this game a little bit off stream last week, but it's a bit of a revenge game for Philly. Like, is that what you're thinking? The same thing?
Yeah, so I'm going to use some language here that's not that's pretty colorful, but I have got to imagine that ever since the schedule came out, that Philly has had this game circled
Hmm.
because respectfully, they got fucked in that Super Bowl.
Yep.
They got fucked.
Yeah.
Like that game, they played the game of their lives, and it came down to a really questionable pass interference call, a really questionable one, and you can't tell me that Philly's not gonna get up for this game.
Right.
Oh, they're gonna get up for this game. and that's going to reflect in my score prediction as well. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, just looking at Philly real quick, the only real injury concern that they had was Bradley Roby was listed as questionable. I know they brought him in to try to help address that secondary. But this team has really been on top of the mountain all year. You know, you look at each challenge they've kind of been faced with, they've been able to step up and handle that and looked pretty good in doing so. They had the one loss, but other than that, they've been the team all year that everyone's been kind of looking to fall off, and they just haven't yet. So I'm not seeing what we've seen with most teams previously and having that Super Bowl hangover and just
yeah.
not looking good the next year. Like they've kind of been immune to that. And I was going to ask, how much of that do you think can be attributed to Jalen Hurts?
Also, want to give a quick update on injuries. It does seem like Dallas Goddard is doubtful
Ah, okay.
for Monday. Yeah,
Ooh, so he
he has
does
a
lose one
forearm
of his
injury
targets.
and didn't participate in Thursday practice.
Ooh, yeah.
So just keep that in mind too. For which actually I think kind of changes things a little bit for me, but not much.
hmm
So
Well, I was just asking you, you know, with Jalen Hurts and stuff, how much do you think that of their success this year can be attributed to him?
I think a good amount of it. He is the reason that offense goes. He is such an understanding of it, and he is such a dual threat. Like, can take off with his legs. He stays in the pocket though when he needs to, and some of the dimes I've seen him drop this year, like he is just accurate with it, man. Like
Yeah.
he's one of the best quarterbacks in the league,
Yeah, I mean,
and yeah,
he's firmly seated in the front position for that MVP race, and for good reason. I mean, you know, his numbers aren't at the same levels
yeah,
they were last year, but I was shocked. He has 7 rushing touchdowns on the season. I mean,
yeah,
it's really good. I mean, and like you said, he can beat you on the ground, beat you through the air. I don't understand how you defend that. It's just he's very, very
yeah.
good. So,
And the thing with Philadelphia too is like when they get in a very short yardage situations on like they have this ability because of the tush push. Like nobody can seem to stop that, and I don't understand how they can't
mhm.
because it's just a quarterback sneak. That's what it is. Like you just jam up the middle, and that's how you stop a quarterback sneak. And I don't understand how every team in the league cannot stop Phillies for some reason. It's
Yeah.
incredible,
Well, think about it when,
incredible.
and I know I brought this up before, but when New England was doing it with Brady, it was
Yeah,
unstoppable. You knew it was coming. And Brady's
yeah.
not the athlete that Hurts is. You know, they're very different
No,
quarterbacks, but you knew it was coming. You still couldn't stop it. It was just, you know, really tough. But one thing that I did notice, and this came up in the Jets game, was they were able to get good pressure on Jalen Hurts, and it changed the dynamic of that game quite a bit. Do you think Kansas City's going to have the ability to be able to do that and get pressure on him?
I think they're going to be able to get some pressure, but respectfully, Philly's offensive line is one of the better ones in the game, and I think they're going to be able to protect him.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that like, and I think too, the thing is even if they do get some pressure on him, like Hurst can just take off with his legs, and he's fast, and I don't know how you replicate that enough practice.
maybe if you're going up against Mahomes, maybe, right? Like it's because he's
Yeah,
kind of shifty, but like these are the only two teams that I look at, and I'm like, okay, well, they could kind of give a good example in practice of what that would be like, a good simulation of that. But you know, I one of the guys that unfortunately Kansas City's not going to be able to simulate is AJ Brown. I mean, they don't have a
nope,
receiver on their team that is like this dude. He is. I mean, talk about Hurts being in the middle of the MVP race. So is AJ Brown. He's doing stuff that's unprecedented at the wide receiver position
yeah,
this year. He's a big body guy. He's fast. He runs good routes. They throw him the ball when he's double covered, and he's still coming down with it. I mean, he's a freak, man. He's awesome to watch.
it's a lot like Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. Is AJ Brown and Jalen Hurts have that chemistry, and they just like Hurts can throw it where he knows AJ Brown's going to be.
hmm
And like once you have that kind of chemistry with a receiver, like I that's hard to stop. Like, you know what I mean? And like AJ Brown already over 1,000 yards for the season.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
and they still have eight games left. Like,
which is awesome when you think about it. Like the production he's able to do, and even across from him, Devonta Smith, like he'd be a number one
Yeah.
on any other team in the league, right? Like, or unless
Oh
you're
yeah.
talking about Chase, Jim, Devontae Adams, one of those guys. But I mean, he's a number one wide receiver. It just I don't know how you stop both of them. I mean, Goddard
Yeah.
being out, that's a big bonus or being doubtful is a big bonus for Kansas City. But these two guys showing up, I can't imagine the secondary of Kansas City's like, hey, we're looking forward to this game. So,
Yeah. Chris Jones is going to have himself a day
yeah.
if Kansas City wants any shot at winning this game,
hmm Well,
because they're going to have to keep that offense off the field.
he's a big-bodied guy. Like he knows how to be able to make plays. We'll jump into him in a second here, but I just wanted to touch base real quick on Philly's defense because and I know we've discussed this a little bit that they just haven't dominated this year like as we had hoped for. Yeah, Jalen Carter, baby Rhino, like he's awesome. He's the front runner
Yeah.
for defensive rookie of the year, but how much of this do you think is the departure of Jonathan Gannon? Mr. Pew Pew.
I think I think there's a decent amount that has to do with that, because he really that defense last year was just insane.
hmm
I also think too, they everybody knows that, especially in the NFC, that the road to the Super Bowl, if you're in the NFC, goes through Philly, and they're the defending NFC champs, and so I think everybody really gets up for them,
Yeah,
and so I think they're getting everyone's best shot, and they've played a lot of close games, and they have let up a decent amount of points. But I will say this: that team is experienced, and they know how to win.
you're right.
And come playoff time, like I think that's really going to be an advantage for them,
hmm
because they've been in these situations, and most close games, they know how to put teams away, and they know the plays they need to make to win. Like
Absolutely.
a couple of weeks ago, that Washington game,
Yep.
or both times they've played Washington this year are great examples.
hmm
Washington plays them tough and had them on the ropes twice, and Philly they were like, okay, we know what we need to do, we know the plays that we need to make, and they just go out and execute. And they still are one of the best coach teams in the league, and so I'm not super worried about that defense, because they still have enough playmakers.
Right. I just wanted to mention real quick because I know people at the beginning of the year had, they were mentioning them in the same breath as the 2000 Ravens. I just want to put it in perspective real quick.
Yeah.
The Ravens gave up 165 points in 2000. That was in 16 games, so an average of about 10 points a game. Philly's
Mhm.
defense eclipsed that number in week 8 of this year. So
Yeah.
it's I mean, yeah, they're a good defense. They have the potential to be great and stuff, but it's not even close. And I mean, we'll jump in when we talk about Kansas City's defense and give a comparison as well, but it's still not even close to what those 2000 Ravens were. It just
Yeah.
it's kind of
The,
crazy.
I always it's funny that people always try to compare defenses to that, and that I always feel like that's not fair, because that's like comparing apples and oranges, because the way the game was played in 2000 to where how it's played now, you the 2000 Ravens could not do the things they did then now.
Right.
They would all get ejected. They would.
N-
Like,
Not to mention like the game is played differently. It wasn't really a pass happy league at that point. So
yeah.
it was just about to turn into that. So it's very different times and stuff. But I
Yeah.
wanted to point that out just because it's still impressive the fact that they only gave up 165 points. But you're right,
And,
you
and in the
can't.
playoffs too, it was like 7-3-7, and then the Super Bowl they let up 7, but it was on a special teams kickoff return. Like,
Mhm.
that's insane,
Yeah,
and then you'll never see that again.
no, I don't think so. Well, let's chat about Kansas City real quick, and I don't think you could start without talking about Patrick Mahomes and Travis Swift Kelsey. Yep, you're right. I hyphenated his last name. It's progressive, man. You have to do it. So, little shout out to Hot Tub Time Machine. So, um, but you just look at Mahomes' stat line, right? 17 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Not really a Patrick Mahomes stat line for a season that you expect. Maybe eight picks over the entire course of the season, but for him to already have that halfway through is kind of I don't know. it makes me uneasy, right? But not only does he need to be better, the offense needs to be better. Just I think it starts with the receivers. It's kind of embarrassing what they put out there this year, but what are your thoughts on it?
I feel like we've talked about this before, but Kansas City's receivers minus Travis Kelsey Swift are just
Yeah.
it's it, it's rough, man. It is rough.
Yeah.
Like they Mahomes single handedly is the reason that they are as good as they are this year. And I know his stats don't reflect that, but if you're going to talk about most valuable player, like that's why he's in the running for it.
Yeah.
Like if you put in any other quarterback instead of Patrick Mahomes on this Chiefs team would be like 3-7 right
Yep,
now.
I was gonna say
Like
maybe they win 3 games.
oh,
You're
they'd be
right.
so bad. And the fact that Mahomes has done what he has done with this team, I kudos to him.
Mhm.
And the two losses they had too, like the Detroit loss now in retrospect, like Detroit's just a really good team this year. Like the Denver loss is like that's kind of a weird loss.
But it's a divisional
I'll admit.
loss, right? Like you're gonna
Yeah.
have it's like Miami beating New England, right? Like years ago, right? Like that. You don't want that to happen, but it's like those teams know you so well, they're gonna play you tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And two, like, yeah, Denver, and the more we like look back on it, like Denver's defense is like weirdly underrated this year. I know they gave up 70 at one point, but the more we're like kind of removed from that, I think that was kind of a fluke.
I'm so glad you
Um,
mentioned that. I was thinking that the
yeah.
other day. Like it doesn't seem like that happen. It seems like a different team we're talking about. Like, and people can have bad days. I know Justin Simmons was out that game. Like, they just man, they just didn't have it. But it looks like it was much more of a fluke, like you said. Now,
Mhm.
as we look back on it,
Yeah. But I really think that Kansas City, Mahomes is going to have to pull up every trick in the book, I think, just to hang with this Philly team.
yeah,
Because right now, the talent differential on these two teams is pretty staggering,
it's massive.
respectfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, even you look at Kelsey, right? And like Philly's, their main objective is take away Kelsey, and the whole table falls down. Like this is a table that
Mhm.
can't stay up with 3 legs. It's impossible. So they know if they remove Kelsey, if they double cover him, whatever they need to do, it's going to make things much harder for Patrick Mahomes. But just a
Yeah.
little comparison: AJ Brown, you were saying he already eclipsed 1,000 yards on the season. Travis Kelsey's their top receiver. He's got 597 yards. Like
Yeah.
it's not even close. And even Kelsey's having a down year based on how he usually is because he's having to do all the heavy lifting. I know he was hurt at the beginning of the season. That doesn't help, but you look at it now, really no one else has stepped up out of that whole bunch, and they paid good money for those
Yeah.
guys. I just
Yeah. Yeah. It's Kelsey's going to have to, it's going to have to be a game. If Kansas City is going to win this game, it's going to be a game where Kelsey has like 12 catches, 160 yards, 3 touchdowns.
yeah.
Like that's really the recipe. And I don't know if you can't count out Mahomes. I will say that. Like Mahomes, when it's on the line, Mahomes will get the job done 9 times out of 10.
Well, and don't
I
forget two big things, man. I cut you off there. Go ahead.
no, you're okay.
I was
No, I
just
was just gonna say with Mahomes, like you can't count them out, man. Like, and
yeah.
they're the defending champs. Like,
It is true. You're right until they knock him off. But my big things for him, he's playing at home, which he always plays, seems to play well at home. But this Philly secondary is very suspect. Now I know they had the Bayard trade, they bring in Roby, all of that stuff. But let's just look at the 2 games since Bayard was traded to them. Washington, they gave up 4 touchdowns, 397 yards to Sam Howell. The
yeah,
Dallas game, they gave up 3 touchdowns, 394 yards to Dak Prescott. He had by far his best game this season. By far. It's not
yeah,
even close. I mean, it kind of makes me chuckle. We were talking about Denver before. They used to have the no fly zone. This is like the free fly zone. So I just think if you play like that against Patrick Mahomes, he could throw 5 touchdowns. He could. I mean, they're nobody guys,
yeah,
but he still could figure out a way to do it. I just, I mean, they've got to figure out a way to be able to take away that top target in Kelsey and get pressure on Mahomes. They really have to figure out how they're going to do that. But I
I
just,
will. I want to push back on that point because
mhm,
I those two games. First of all, I think Washington always just plays Philly tough.
mhm.
They do. They're that team. I mean, look at last year. Washington beat Philly to make sure they weren't undefeated. But like also that Dallas game, like if you kind of look into that game a little more, a lot of those stats that Dak had were garbage time stats. Because Philly was up 28-17 on them going into the fourth. Like,
I mean, I understand the bend but don't break, but 400 yards, it's a ton of yardage, man. Like I get it.
sure,
Even garbage time. Like I looked at CeeDee Lamb, he had 16 targets that game. I mean,
yeah,
that dude, put somebody on him. Somebody like it shows that when you're losing guys, and I know they brought back Bradbury, they ended up losing the other guy to Detroit, the safety, and now he's out for the year and stuff. But it just I don't know. It feels like they have holes all throughout this secondary, and they can't find guys that can plug those holes. So I mean, if you're gonna say that you're a good defense, their front seven, excellent. They really are. I mean, they've got a legit front seven that scare people, but their
yeah.
secondary is just suspect. And that Darius Slay is not what he was. It just, I don't know. I don't think they have it in terms of the secondary to be able to hang in there. That's that's the problem. And like when you have guys like if it was Kirk Cousins in Washington doing that, I'd say okay, but this is Sam Howell. Like
Yeah.
it's not Dak. I can get past that. Like I don't think Dak's a bad quarterback, but I don't know Sam Howell. I don't think he's great or world beating. And for him to go off like that, it just is like either you have a poor game plan or they just know you so well. I don't know.
I think it's they know you so well. And I think I know their their secondary is suspect, but when you have a front seven the way Philly does, I don't think that necessarily always matters.
Yeah,
Like also Sam Howell, for what it's worth, is having a pretty good season.
he's leading the league in passing yards. I'm pretty sure. Um,
Like he has almost 2,800 passing yards, 17 touchdowns, 9 picks, completing almost 67% of his passes. Like the dude's been pretty decent.
those stats
Like I
sound
know he
very
plays for the
similar to
Commanders.
Mahomes, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, it's kind of
The
crazy.
problem is the Commanders don't have anybody.
Yeah.
Like, and then they traded away their entire defense.
Hmm.
Like,
Listen, I'm not a
so
Sam Howell hater. I actually like him. I just, I don't know. I feel like Philly should be better if this team has Super Bowl aspirations. They can't just put it all on the offense. And like that's similar to what you saw in the Super Bowl. Their defense I thought was better last year, and then all of a sudden they like weren't able to stop Kansas City at all in the Super Bowl. And that kind of I don't think that's going to get them back there. I think they need to be able to get stops at key points. So they've got to be able to figure that stuff out in the second half of the season here. Um,
yeah,
Kansas City's defense, though, they've been better than Philly this year. I know they've given up 143 points this year. They haven't given up more than 20 points in a single game all year. And the one thing that I'll say about that is if you tell Patrick Mahomes, "Hey, listen, as the defensive coordinator, I can guarantee we're not going to give up more than 20." He's like, "Yeah, we're winning that game then." You're definitely
yeah,
going to have a good shot at winning that game because I'll take Mahomes 10 times out of 10 if they tell me the defense is going to hold them to 20 or less because he's just that
right,
good. And I don't know. We talked about Chris Jones a lot. Like I know it seems like you're a big fan of him, but I know I am too. I mean, he's just
right.
it's funny how stats can be deceiving, right? He's got 5.5 sacks on the year, but it's not necessarily him getting the sacks. It's what he does in terms of pressure, how they have
Yeah,
to plan the game around him. He has such big impact plays where he doesn't make the tackle or he doesn't get the sack or the QB hit. It's that guy is just an absolute game record. The way Aaron Donald was, I think, in his peak, it reminds me a lot of the same.
yeah, yeah. I agree. It's funny with Kansas City's defense because I think they employ a similar bend but don't break because they play a lot of teams close. They do. That Denver game again, they got blown out, which was weird. But they do play teams close. and I worry with them too, like that their defense is going to get exposed at some point. I know the stat you just gave out that they're holding teams to under 20 points a game, but like you can throw on these guys, and you can. The problem is that Mahomes has been good enough for them this year that like they're racing out to these big leads against teams, and then you're like, well, okay, like when a defense knows a pass is coming every single time, like that's kind of easy to defend. I think personally,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Meanwhile, like if the score is close, they've got to be able to run the ball. You don't know what's coming on every play. You're right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think with both of these defenses, like we just talked about with Philly, I think it's the same thing with Kansas City. Then, like you have to like their bend but don't break defense. Like I don't know if that's going to get them back. Like I think that if they're going to get back, it's because Mahomes is just going to another level, which we've seen him do time and time again.
Yeah. I mean,
So I don't
that's the
know.
thing. I don't like counting against Mahomes. I don't like counting against Hurts, and I don't like counting against Burrow because they always have a
Yeah,
way of proving us wrong. And now we're going to be wrong one way or the other in this one. So it just one thing I wanted to mention before we jump into the predictions and stuff is just looking forward at Kansas City. They have one game that concerns me the rest of the schedule, and that was before last night's game was played. Like they're going to play Kansas City. That was the one. They're going to play Cincinnati. That's the one game that was slightly concerning to me. But even if they lose that game, they're still going to be the front runner for the number one seed. They have to be. I mean, it's just I don't
yeah,
see them losing any of those other games. Will they drop one? Maybe. But even if they do, the path is still going to go through Kansas City. Like you're still going to have to go into
yeah,
Arrowhead in January when it's cold. It could be snowing. Like I don't want to play that game. I don't think any
yeah,
team does, right? Like it just can you imagine Lamar Jackson what makes him great is when he doesn't have to play in the snow. I don't see
yeah.
him going in a snow blizzard into Arrowhead and winning a game. I just don't see it. It's
I don't either.
yeah, it's I mean they you said they run the ball well, they play good defense, but what makes Lamar great gets nullified with snow. It really does. So, I mean, looking at Philly though, they have a much harder path, man. Buffalo, San Francisco, then they play at Dallas, at Seattle. They wrap up with two games against the Giants and then play one against Arizona. But I think Philly has to win this game, not
I
only
do
to
too.
not only for the confidence boost, but they need it because their path the rest of the way, they could be dropping some of those games. And you do not want to lose this game and then have to go up against Buffalo, who can't seem to get things together. But if they do, you don't want it happening against you. You don't want to play against San
Yeah,
Francisco, who is definitely looking to recant on what happened last year when they felt like they got screwed against you, right? So it's then you've got
right.
Dallas, who's hungry. Seattle just seems like, okay, well, Geno Smith keeps showing up. This offense keeps showing up. The defense is playing well enough. I don't know. It just the Giant. Yeah,
I
go
think
ahead.
with Philly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say the Giants in Arizona don't worry me at all. Like I know it's divisional games with the Giants, but they don't scare me at all against Philly. But yeah, go ahead.
I'm going to say a thing. The only game that worries me the rest of the way for them is San Francisco.
Mm,
For me, I the rest of those games like Buffalo, respectfully,
it's
no.
trash this year. Yeah,
I've
they've.
watched enough of them. Dallas, talk to me when they can win a big game. Talk to me. Until then, no.
Mhm.
Seattle, respectfully, like I love Geno Smith, but like Geno Smith's not beating Philly. They're not.
Yeah, they may
Sure, that
make.
game's in Seattle,
I
but
see them
no.
making it out of the wild card round, but I don't see them. I could see them losing to Detroit. Definitely could see that, and I know they beat them earlier, but like I could see that happening. I definitely see them losing to San Francisco. I definitely see them losing to Philly. So I don't think they're one of the top three teams in the NFC. I just don't. And
No.
I'll tell
And
you, if
I said this last week.
yeah,
I was gonna say I said this last week. Geno Smith can only take you so far. And that's a divisional round game.
I agree. I got a hot take for you too.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I see Minnesota beating them.
Oh yeah.
I see Minnesota with Dobbs being a better team than them. I do. I
Huh.
think I think people haven't even gotten into what Tyson Chandler is and don't know about him yet. They're going to find out this Sunday. That guy is super talented. So I
Yeah.
know a few injuries had to happen for him to get moved to the front, but look out for him. So anyhow, I'm getting off track now. I'm getting too excited about it. But tell me, who do you have for this game?
I think this game's going to be, even without Goddard, I still think this is a game that's going to be a little more of a blowout. I think it's going to be Philly 31, Kansas City 20.
Ooh, we are very close. So I have Philly 31, Kansas City 28. So I think it
Yeah.
comes down to a field goal at the end. I think Mahomes at home is able to. I like that. Mahomes at home. He's able to keep it close with Mr. Swift Kelsey. So
Yeah.
um,
For me, I think it's just Philly has had this game circled for a long time, and they are going to get up for this game in a way that I think they're just going to come out and start throwing haymakers and punch him in the mouth.
I I got a real question for you, and I know it's going to sound
Sure.
funny, but do you think it matters if she's at the game?
No, no. I think that just means like what I appreciate is I think that means if she is going to be at the game because uh all right, so I kind of went down the rabbit hole, but this is the game where Taylor Swift's parents and Travis Kelsey's parents are going to meet.
Ooh,
Fun fact. So I think that's really exciting. Um,
could
yeah.
Travis have like
So
three touchdowns this game, and they're like wooed by him, and then all of a sudden we have like a marriage proposal next week or something, right?
he does play. He does play better when she's there. I'm just saying. I'm just saying.
it
Like,
it could be nuts. I don't want to bring it up, but I had to, right? Like it's something we got
yeah,
to think
no,
about. So, oh man. Well, I'm very excited to see that. I know I'm not going to be able to watch it live, but I can't wait to watch the highlights on it and or well, rather rewatch it the next day. So don't
right.
ruin it for me. But let's shift gears real quick into the Major League Baseball awards that have now they've wrapped up, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah,
I saw they announced Rookie of the Year.
yeah. Yeah, so Gunnar Henderson in the American League for the Orioles,
Mhm.
and Corbin Carroll for the Diamondbacks, both unanimous choices. Which honestly I wasn't really shocked by. They were both by and far the best rookies in their respective leagues this year.
Mhm.
I mean, Gunnar Henderson was a big reason Baltimore won 100 games. Corbin Carroll was the reason Arizona got to the World Series. Like
Yeah.
they both were just insanely good. So
And
not much to really kind of speak about onto that.
and you've been planting your
Um,
flag on Carroll Island all year, as I've been
sure
talking to you
have.
about baseball. I mean, he's not only is he awesome to watch, but like you had picked up very early that like this guy is super special and he's going to mean a lot
Yeah.
for this team. Didn't
Fantastic
realize,
mustache as well.
yeah,
Fantastic mustache.
I didn't realize it was going to land them in the World Series, but his play really did have a big part in them making it that far. So,
Yeah.
uh, definitely kudos to him.
The next one, the Cy Young. I need to go on a rant for a minute because first of all, we'll start with Garrett Cole in the American League won Cy Young, unanimous choice. I have no problem with that. He was the best pitcher in the American League this year. Um, he is the sixth Yankee to ever do it, but the first Yankee. Oh, so he's the first Yankee to win the Cy Young since Clemens in '01.
Hmm.
But he is the second unanimous choice for Cy Young as a Yankee since Ron Guidry in 1978.
Ooh.
Some fun facts. Blake Snell won it for the Padres in the National League.
Okay, let me
I'm gonna,
ask
I'm
first.
gonna,
Let me ask first
I want,
before you.
I want to real quick. I want to
Yeah.
give fun Blake Snell fun facts
Okay.
before I completely rip this guy apart
All right. All right.
and the voting process for this. Uh, so, first guy since 1959 to lead the league in walks and win the Cy Young.
Hmm.
It's kind of impressive. Seventh player to win one in each league, which is, I think, also really impressive. And that list are all Hall of Famers or future Hall of Famers. It's Gaylord Perry, it's Randy Johnson, Pedro, Clemens, Holiday, and Max Scherzer.
Oh, wow. Hmm.
But he's the second lefty to do it ever. Him and Randy Johnson are the only lefties in the history of baseball to win a Cy Young in each league,
That's incredible. Well,
which is that's really impressive.
I gotta ask, do you like Blake Snell?
I think he's a great pitcher. I don't think he should have won Cy Young this year. I think
Okay.
it is,
All right. Here's the path for you. Go ahead. Rip it open.
and I need the viewers to know that there's going to be some really, there's going to be a lot of f bombs here because I am furious at this. First of all, the fact that Spencer Strider finished fourth in Cy Young voting is an absolute fucking travesty. It is. That man won 20 games, struck out almost 300 hitters, which, and I get that wins don't really matter as much as they used to. And I get that like everybody strikes out now. So getting a high K count is it's easier to do, quote unquote. But Spencer Strider was just the eye test alone was the best pitcher in the National League this year. I think respectfully the best pitcher in the league this year. And the fact that he probably got dinged because Atlanta flamed out in the playoffs and he lost 2 games in that series in that divisional series against Philly, which isn't his fault because he didn't get any goddamn run support. And also the fact that he got dinged for postseason play when it's a regular season award. Oh, it makes me so angry. The Baseball Writers of America, they get it right a lot of the time, but this is one of those. This is one of those times where it is a just miscarriage of justice. It's absolutely bullshit. It is.
It's too
I'm
bad.
sorry, but
It's just too bad, man. Like, and how can they change that? Like, I know we were chatting about it before and suggesting maybe they could vote for it before the playoffs start. But I know a lot of times those wild card games start right as soon as baseball season ends. So how do they vote for this stuff? Like I think maybe they don't release the results, but they should have to turn in the results before the postseason starts.
that's there are other leagues that do this. Like the perfect example is the NBA. They have to have their awards balloting in by the end of the regular season.
Yeah, why don't they do that? I mean, baseball has been around for the longest out of all the sports, right? Why
Yeah.
why has this not been something that they've thought of to say, "Oh yeah, let's do this to make sure"? Because I feel like it's not the first time I've heard of like postseason tainting a regular season award. I feel like this is something that's come up often.
I, I think it's look, baseball is my favorite sport, and I have had a love affair with it since I was 5. But the thing that I hate about baseball is its refusal to change, and the refusal to change just because they operate under, well, that's the way we've always done it. Like, and that drives me nuts. It drives me nuts. And like, every other league gets it right with their voting most of the time. Like they all get their votes in by the end of the regular season. Like it's wild to me that votes don't have to be turned in until after the playoffs. That is wild to me. And yeah, that's baseball's thing. They have a hard time changing, and it takes like big grassroots movements for them to change. Like them getting the pitch clock like was a huge change for them this year
Hmm.
in baseball, and that is something that people have been wanting for years, and that's been a thing for years in the minors. And baseball is just so stuck in its ways that like there's a reason not a lot of people under 35 watch baseball. There's a big reason, like, and the talent is better than ever.
Yeah, I was going to ask just because I was a little I don't know, I guess confused. And again, I don't understand at the level you do in terms of the how the Baseball Writers of America vote or anything like that. But I don't get how he finished fourth in voting. That's something that like really okay, him not winning it. Listen, I'm disappointed about that, but fourth seems like a crime. He was definitely
Yep.
like you said, and again, I'm very biased because I love the Braves, but it really looked like he was the best pitcher in baseball for the majority of the season. And I just don't understand how he finishes fourth. That's basically a slap in the face to him to say like, "Oh yeah, you just we didn't think you were that good at all." Like, does ERA
Yeah.
matter that much that it's, and granted, I know, listen, he's not, like, I look at some of the Braves pitchers that had won in the past with Smoltz and Glavine and Maddox winning it. They all had low ERAs. Smoltz, I think, had the highest one out of all of them when he had won. But I look at that now and I'm just, I guess I'm just confused by it. That, was that the only thing?
Like if you look at the voting, the breakdown of the voting, it gets worse because the guy who finished second, Logan Webb, respectfully, like he had an okay year. He finished 11-13, and he was the runner-up in the Cy Young voting.
Yeah, what did
Like
Strider
I,
finish
I
as?
understand.
He was like 20 and
Strider finished fourth,
yeah, but he was 20 and I
20 and
forget
5.
20 and 5. Like that's
Yeah,
crazy. That's
yeah,
crazy, man. Ugh.
and what it comes down to, and I know that analytics play a big part of it. And I am the first that leads the charge in analytics because I think analytics really tells a more complete story about a player
Yeah.
9 times out of 10. And I get that Blake Snell had a wins above replacement of 6. I get that, and like Spencer Strider only had a wins above replacement of 3.4, which is bananas to me. But again, whatever. But like sometimes like you just gotta you gotta do the eye test, man. Like sometimes like you just gotta be like, look, Spencer Strider, every time he went out, that was a guaranteed win. Like, and like respectfully for Blake Snell, the dude led the league in walks. He walked a bunch of guys and also respectfully didn't pitch a lot of innings. Like he pitched like him and Strider pitched the same amount of innings, and like look at their stats. Like Blake Snell 14-9. His ERA was really good. I will say that his ERA was 2.25, which that's incredible. That is a very low ERA, which you don't see anymore. So I get it, but like man, just look at this. Just do the eye test once in a while. Strider was the best pitcher in the league this year, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah,
And
I've
I
seen.
will go to my grave thinking that.
Yeah, you just see a lot of stats that have risen up in the last few years that it seems like we didn't use in previous years. Like I know they have the term, or like the phrase, getting lost in the sauce. Sometimes you can get lost in the stats. Like it just, I don't know. I wish they wouldn't overcomplicate it and just go based on like looking at and watching them pitch. But I've also heard too, and partially for in years previous, not just this year, but I've heard that a lot of the people that vote don't actually watch the games, and
Yeah,
that's.
it's
Uh,
insane.
I'm not saying they need to sit there and watch every moment of baseball, but you should know who these people are when you're voting.
Yeah.
If you don't,
Also, like,
then hand your vote in to somebody who
yeah,
does watch it, right? Like, and I'm not saying you or me deserve a vote. What I'm saying is, there are plenty of people that write articles out there. They're journalists. They're actually active within the baseball community that would be great voters for them. They really would be.
yeah. Well, so what's wild too is like if you look at the breakdown for the voting for the AL Cy Young,
Hmm.
like the guy who finished second, Sonny Gray, and like respectfully, that's bullshit. Like Sonny Gray, like was an okay pitcher for them this year, but he didn't light the world on fire. Like, sure, the Twins were good, but like somebody had to win the AL Central because that division was a dumpster fire. Like, he was 8-8. Like
Yeah.
that and you finish second in the Cy Young voting. Like I don't like what are we even fucking watching
Yeah.
anymore? Like god damn it. Like god damn it. Like
Uh,
like the rest of the voting for all the other awards this year, like I agreed with. I was like, cool, that makes sense. Like the Cy Young the NL Cy Young voting just didn't make any sense. And then like the Cy Young voting after Garrett Cole for the American League just didn't make sense either. Like I just again, thank you for letting me rant about this because I have been wanting to rant about this for a few days now, and I knew it. I feel better. I feel better.
yeah.
But also, fuck the baseball writers of America. So I said it.
Well,
Um,
let's jump into these. We have manager of the year too. This one they got right, it seems, for both leagues as well.
yeah, Skip Shoemaker. First year at the Marlins led them to the playoffs, led them to a winning record, which the Marlins don't do often. So big ups to that. And then Brandon Hyde for the Orioles, man, like that dude, if that dude was so deserving of that.
Hmm.
He really was. Like that team won 100 games. He was there for that rebuild, which was fucking brutal to watch if you're a Baltimore fan.
Yeah.
And he got to reap the rewards of that.
Hmm.
And
And
like,
hopefully
and
they'll be
now he
back,
has,
right? Like,
yeah, yeah. Baltimore's a couple starting pitchers away from, I think, really contending next year.
mhm.
So, and then MVP, this came as no shock to me. Otani, second in 3 years. Kudos to him. And Acuna, who was the first guy to have 40 homers, 70 steals, like,
Yeah.
which is insane.
Didn't do much in the
Which
playoffs, but it's a regular season award, so that's why.
right. And then
uh,
what's wild about the National League voting this year is that Matt Olson had 54 home runs and finished fourth in that race. That's how good the play was in the National League this year.
yeah. Who
Like,
ended up
if
finishing
you look,
second and third?
Betts and Freeman.
Yep, that's what I
That,
figured. When you have the top four
yeah,
guys strewn across two teams, that's crazy. That is
yeah,
that is a consolidation of talent on two of the best teams in baseball.
yeah. It just absolutely insane. I, I, you could have made a case for me with Mookie Betts. You could have made a case for Freddie Freeman. You could have made a case for all four of those guys that they could have won MVP, and
Mhm.
I would have been like, okay, I buy it. But like Acuna, man, what he did this year was just special. Like that's you don't see seasons like that often, and what he did, like I talk about the eye test. He was the best player in the National League this year, and it wasn't even close.
Yeah,
Like, yeah. So,
yeah. It's
and the same with Otani. Like, I know that he like stopped pitching in like August, but like he still won 10 games as a pitcher and hit over 40 home runs as a hitter.
yeah.
I,
He's it's
I don't know how you
incredible.
beat that.
Yeah, it really is incredible, and it was a wild baseball season too. So, one thing I was going to ask you real quick, Lavello, how did he finish it all? Did he get some votes in Manager of the Year?
He did. I think he finished top three, if I remember
Okay,
correctly.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
like
figured he probably would because of what he was able to do there. I mean, it's kind of incredible them making it, but again, it's the regular season, and even I understand
yeah,
that it's the regular season. So,
yeah,
anyhow. All right. Well, and I know you had mentioned we're going to be diving in a little bit next week into some baseball free agency. Is that right?
yeah. Yeah, I
Okay.
just kind of want to get a breakdown of like who, because free agency's already started.
Yep.
So I want to just kind of break down a little bit like the top free agents, which is just really it's Shohei Otani.
Hmm.
Like it's and everybody's wondering where he's going to go, and it's not how much money is he going to get, but how many Brinks trucks are they going to back up for him?
Yep.
So
Hopefully, I
um,
can find out
I
where
am
those
gonna
are.
yeah, yeah. I am going to manifest this. I keep trying to manifest this. My buddy Shane out in Syracuse has been trying to manifest this that he comes to the Red Sox, but you know, a guy can dream, man.
I'd
A
love to
guy
see
can
the
dream.
Braves make a play at him, but I don't know. I don't
I
think.
would not. I would
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, I
No,
know you wouldn't.
no, no.
Oh, man. Well, I know last week we had an interesting trivia question. We were saying that
Mhm.
there was four teams that hadn't appeared in a Super Bowl, and I know we had a few people guessing at it and stuff. But go ahead, tell them who they are. The four teams that we had.
Yeah, Houston Texans, Jacksonville Jaguars, Cleveland Browns, and Detroit Lions.
Could we see Houston Texans and Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl this year?
If that happens, hell is officially frozen over,
Yeah.
and I know we're on our last days.
Or CJ Stroud is just that dude, right? Like it's it's possible.
Yeah.
So, but I know we want to continue this trend, so we got another question for you, for next week. And I know part of this was we were tossing questions back and forth in terms of the draft coming up and who's going to be able to have those picks. I know we had talked about it after the Thursday night game with Carolina. It seems like they're going to lock up the number one pick, but it's actually going to the Bears.
Yeah.
Very interesting kind of that. But you had mentioned that there was three teams that have never had the first overall pick in the draft. So remember,
Yeah.
three teams that have never had the first overall pick in the draft. You guys can go and enter them in the comments below. Send us an email if you want as well. Go ahead and take a stab at it. Let us know what you think. But
I'm,
anything else
I'm
you?
also gonna
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna throw in a baseball trivia question as well
Oh,
today.
nice. Okay, so we got a
Yeah.
double one. Here we go.
Yeah. So with Ronald Acuna, he won MVP,
Hmm.
and he's also won Rookie of the Year as well. Now there are two players in the history of baseball that have won MVP and Rookie of the Year in the same season. Who are they?
Wow. Wow.
Who are they? I will give you a hint. Both of these players played for teams in the American League.
Okay. All right.
So
Well,
yeah,
listen, we will definitely answer both of those next week. So that way, make sure you get your guesses in. Like I said, you can comment in the comments below. Let us know what you think. Take a stab at it. See if you can guess. Anything
yes,
else you
sir.
wanted to cover, Al?
Nah, man, I'm good. I'm good.
Awesome. Well, listen, nothing else on my end either. We will be back next Tuesday. We will not be doing an episode on Thanksgiving for your sake and stuff, but we will be dropping an episode Tuesday, and it will be kind of cool because you'll be able to download this. Go ahead and plug it in while you're on your ride home, going to Thanksgiving, and you can listen to us. Let us know what you think. So we'll be covering some Week 11 matchups. We're also going to be doing, or actually the Week 11 breakdowns from what happens, the
Yeah.
results from Sunday. So just remember, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like the video. Go ahead and drop a comment below. Let us know what you think. You can always email us at thepulsewa@gmail.com. Again, you can find me on Twitter at WillieCreemanFF or on Twitch on Sundays, an hour before kickoff at Willie Creeman. But other than that, man, I love you, bro. I really appreciate it.
I love you, man. Hey, as good as always, and take care and stay safe, man.
Yeah, you too, bro. Peace.
Peace.